Okay, good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and call the State Allocation Board meeting for February 26, 2025 to order. Just some housekeeping real quick here before we get started. This meeting is being held in person at the State Building and Construction Trades Council of California, located at 1231 I Street in Suite 101 in Sacramento, California, 95814. For anyone that would like to provide public comment in person. This meeting is also being conducted by way of Zoom meeting for members of the public that would like to participate remotely. In order for this meeting to run efficiently, for those participating remotely, please note the following guidelines. All attendees will be muted during the meeting. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature in the Zoom meeting interface. I will call your name at the appropriate time, and OPSC staff will request to unmute you. Number two, if you're calling into the meeting and not using a computer or the Zoom application on a mobile device, unfortunately, you will be unable to provide public comment at this time. The board will be meeting in closed session upon the conclusion of the general meeting pursuant to Government Code Section 11126E1 for the purpose of conferring with and receiving advice from legal counsel regarding potential litigation. Before we start with our agenda items, we would like to take a moment to thank Assemblymember David Alvarez for his dedication and service to the State Allocation Board. Assemblymember Alvarez has participated in his last State Allocation Board meeting in January, and he's not joining us today, correct? Okay, thank you. But we do want to thank him for his service. We recognize that our legislative members are juggling quite a bit, and so we appreciate them taking the time to be here and serve on this board. We would also like to welcome, on that note, 3 new State Allocation Board members at today's meeting. Assemblymember Sharon Quirk-Silva, thank you for joining us. Senator Sasha Renee Perez. Do I have, nope, not here, okay. And Senator Stephen Choi, thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to congratulate you on your recent appointments and welcome you to the State Allocation Board. Ms. Jones, with that, would you please call the roll, noting any members joining us from a remote location?
Certainly. Senator Laird?
Here.
And that is a remote participation. Senator Perez? Senator Choi?
Here.
Assemblymember Murasucci?
Here.
And that is a remote participation. Assemblymember Davies?
Here.
Assemblymember Quirk-Silva?
Here.
Juan Morales?
Here.
Jeremy Smith?
Here.
Ana Lasso?
Here.
Michelle Perrell?
I am present.
And we have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next order of business, which is to take up our minutes from the January 22nd, 2025 meeting. Ms. Kirk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The minutes from the January 22nd, 2025 meeting are on stamped pages 1 through 8 of today's agenda, and I request that the board approve the minutes.
Thank you so much. Are there any comments or questions from the board members on the minutes? Seeing none. Are there any public comments on the minutes? Seeing none in the room.
Make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we please have roll call?
Senator Laird.
Excuse me. Senator Laird?
Aye.
Laird, aye. Senator Choi?
Is this the minutes?
The minutes, yes.
Yeah, I abstain because I was not here.
Abstention.
Abstain. Choi, abstain. Assemblymember Murasucci?
Aye.
Murasucci, aye. Assemblymember Davies?
Aye.
Davies, aye. Assemblymember Quirk-Silva?
Abstain. I wasn't here.
Quirk-Silva, abstain. Juan Morales?
Aye.
Morales, aye. Jeremy Smith?
Aye.
Smith, aye. Ana Lasso?
Aye.
Lasso, aye. Michelle Perrell?
Aye.
Perrell, aye. And that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and move on now to our next item of business, which is the executive officer statement. We're going to go ahead and just note for roll call that we have been joined by Senator Sasha Renee Perez. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the board. We'll now go ahead and move on to the executive officer statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few updates for the board since our last meeting in January. Since that last meeting, since that last state allocation board meeting, the Office of Public School Construction has held 3 stakeholder meetings, primarily focused on gathering input toward implementation of various provisions of Proposition 2. The first stakeholder meeting on January 30th consisted of 5 different topics from Proposition 2 to start the conversation and obtain stakeholder input. At this meeting, we had 161 participants via Zoom and 10 stakeholders who attended in person. We intend to conduct an additional stakeholder meeting regarding the SFP matching share and the 75-year-old building supplemental grant topics in the near future. We do anticipate presenting regulatory amendments for the board's consideration on the remaining 3 topics at the March meeting. On February 13th, we conducted a second stakeholder meeting with half a dozen additional topics for implementation of Proposition 2. We were again joined by about 169 unique stakeholders on Zoom and 8 stakeholders who attended in person at our office in West Sacramento. Stakeholders may submit feedback on the topics from that meeting until the end of this week to have their input considered for the second stakeholder meeting scheduled on these topics in the near future. We also conducted a third stakeholder meeting, this one on February 20th, to discuss 2 topics unrelated to Proposition 2, the second round of modernization funding, as well as regulatory amendments for the facility hardship and facility hardship seismic mitigation program. Stakeholders may submit feedback on these topics through March 7th, 2025, to have their input considered for subsequent stakeholder meetings on these topics. Details will be announced as the meetings are scheduled moving forward. I would also like to provide an update on the upcoming Charter School Facilities Program filing round. At the January 22nd meeting, we indicated that based on reports of several charter schools being displaced from school sites that were significantly damaged or destroyed in the fires in January 2025 in Los Angeles County, we were evaluating at that time the impact and potential need to modify timelines for the upcoming Charter School Facilities Program filing round that had previously been announced to open on May 4th, 2025. During periods of emergency proclaimed by the governor, existing regulations direct the executive officer to provide relief to school districts and ensure there is equitable participation in the board's programs. After further consideration since that time and continuing outreach with the impacted school districts and charter schools, OPSC has opted to postpone that upcoming filing round by about 2 months. The new filing round will open and applications will begin being accepted on July 3rd, 2025, and they can be submitted until the round closes on October 30th, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. If the total amount requested from valid and complete applications exceeds the funding available, the Charter School Facilities Program regulations specify that a preference point system and funding matrix will be used to prioritize applications for funding. We will have upcoming webinar dates announced soon on the application process. Finally, I'd like to note that today's consent agenda does include the first unfunded approvals proposed for the board's consideration coming from new bond authority authorized by the voter passage of Proposition 2 in November. These projects will be able to participate in the priority funding filing process, with that filing period beginning on May 14th and ending on June 12th. Projects receiving an unfunded approval today are anticipated to be funded from a fall 2025 statewide general obligation bond sale from Proposition 2. Information on that process is available on our website. Finally, our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. I'm pleased to address any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments from board members on the executive officer statement? Seeing none, okay. We'll go ahead and ask if there are any public comments on executive officer statement. I see none in the room and none online. Okay, thank you. This isn't an action item, so we'll go ahead and move on to our next order of business, which is to take up the consent agenda. Ms. Kirk?
Thank you. Today's consent agenda is on stamped pages 11 through 88 of today's agenda. As previously mentioned, it consists in part of unfunded approvals for 26 projects totaling $112 million. I request the board approve the consent agenda.
Thank you so much. Comments or questions from board members on the consent agenda? Seeing none, are there any comments or questions from the public? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion.
Okay, motioned. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. If you'll call the roll.
Certainly. Senator Laird?
Aye.
Laird, aye. Senator Perez?
Aye.
Perez, aye. Senator Choi?
Aye.
Choi, aye. Assemblymember Marisucci?
Aye.
Marisucci, aye. Assemblymember Davies? Davies, aye. Assemblymember Quirk Silva?
Aye.
Quirk Silva, aye. Juan Morales?
Aye.
Morales, aye. Jeremy Smith?
Aye.
Smith, aye. Ana Lasso?
Aye.
Lasso, aye. Michelle Peralt?
Aye.
Peralt, aye. This motion carries.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and move now forward onto our financial reports. Ms. Kirk?
Thank you. Today's financial reports are on stamped pages 89 through 105 of the agenda. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from the board on the financial reports? Seeing none, do we have any public comments on financial reports? Okay, seeing none, this is not an action item, so we'll go ahead and move on to our next order of business. Excuse me. Which is to take up the first of a few appeals. I'd like to go ahead and present staff. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm on stamp page 106 of the agenda. This school district appeal request is for the Camptonville Union Elementary School District. This is a one-school district up in Yuba County that 24-25 enrollment had 48 pupils. In this request, the district's requesting the State Allocation Board determine whether an asbestos abatement of project found during the course of a flooring project qualifies for the Facility Hardship Program under the School Facility Program. Back in January of 2024, the district submitted a facility hardship request for conceptual approval to determine if the asbestos abatement project that they found qualifies for the program. Staff reviewed the project as submitted and determined that it was ineligible for funding under that program because it did not meet the program requirements. Specifically, what we were looking for is request for asbestos mitigation has to include test results and that demonstrate that asbestos found is currently friable and an imminent health and safety to the students on the campus. And during our staff review, it was determined that it was not discovered until after this district started on their modernization project for the carpet replacement that it was found. So the district's request is they're determining that they would like you to determine that the removal of the asbestos in this particular case is a unique circumstance and requesting the board grant conceptual approval for this project. The original flooring request for the original flooring project for the district was roughly $49,000 in cost. After completing the asbestos abatement, it's roughly $75,000. They would note that in the course of this project, they did trigger some accessibility work by DSA, which has been deferred, but that is expected to add roughly, I believe, $50,000 to the project. The district's annual operating budget in 23-24 was roughly $997. So under the Facility Hardship Program, it does provide grant assistance to school districts when there is a condition at the school that has demonstrated health and safety threat, but it has to demonstrate it is a threat imminently to students. We're not looking for the potential of threat. Common circumstances where we find this, damage in earthquakes, fires, those are more obvious ones. Structural deficiencies in a building that's been identified by a structural engineer, an architect, and multiple other kind of criteria. In this particular case, after working with the district, they did submit a report by Citadel Environmental Health, and that's attachment B in your report that kind of outlines the conditions they found after the fact in this modernization project. What the report has basically shown is they have to stop short of saying with 100% certainty that a health and safety issue existed before the project started, but based on their experience and the review of all the work done by the contractor in this project, the contractor did everything they could to take care in removing the carpet, cutting into strips, and what they found in the report does go so far as say that the tiles did stick to the carpet as it comes up, causing damage, but there are other instances where there was probably already damage before the carpet work started. But they can't go to 100% certainty with that. In working with this district last year, we had already started embarking on a staff level of working on facility hardship and seismic reg cleanup already. And looking at the regs, we do identify that asbestos that's friable is an eligible expenditure under that program, but we could work on more clarity in that it has to happen before work starts during the course of a project and have that clear health and safety issue that they're willing to cross the line and make that statement before they start the work. So we're continuing that work. We actually have a stakeholder meeting coming up on March 6th to continue that work to make that clear in our regs. We have funded asbestos abatement many times under our program, but in these cases, there are clear differences in it. We've had asbestos in cases of earthquake, where fireproof insulation has been damaged in ceilings and covered schools in asbestos. We've had it in pools, where cement-lined piping has been damaged, not damaged, but deteriorated over time and leaked fibers into the pool, but nothing that appears to be, that were more obviously caused by the district. In this case, we can't determine that. From a status of the project standpoint, the project was completed back in and opened up already back in the 23-24 school year. There still is the remaining DSA work that the district will need to be complete at a later time if the board approves the district's appeal. Concluding, staff doesn't support the district's request based on the evidence provided, including the industry specialist report. It does not conclusively demonstrate that the asbestos existed prior to the flooring replacement project. So we did not find that it represents an extraordinary circumstances. The abatement of asbestos aligns very closely with our modernization project, where it's clear in statute as an eligible expenditure since the beginning of the program. But as mentioned, we are continuing the regulation process to update our regs to make it more clear that work found in these cases should not be eligible. If the board does decide to approve the district's project, based on the conclusion that friable asbestos was present prior to the commencement of the modernization project, we would recommend to the board direct staff that we present proposed regulatory amendments in the future to make it clear that if a health and safety issue cannot be demonstrated prior to an active construction project, they are not eligible for funding under the facility hardship program. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the district is available online via Zoom.
Thank you so much. Before I take it to board members for comments and questions, I do want to give the district and the representatives an opportunity. I believe we have either one or two of them online. Mr. Brose, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. I'm not sure if you'd like to provide any additional comments.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate it. You got it right. It's Bros. I always appreciate it when people go for that one. So yeah, I can give you guys any information you really want with it. I do disagree a little bit with the report. We had made a huge amount of effort to ensure that there were no circumstances ahead of time. I've met with a number of your staffers in the previous weeks, and we've gone over our findings and the experience with it. For me, this was a small time window summer program project to get done to improve the safety of the campus. We removed carpet that was 20 plus years old and in severe condition. We had no working knowledge that the asbestos existed prior to it. There was no indication that it was there in the classrooms prior to the start of work. We even took the time to pull up samples within the building in the hallways and the adjoining rooms and did not find any. So it wasn't until we got to the 3 classrooms listed on there that it became an issue. You have all the reports. I can answer any questions from them. This does represent approximately 10% of my operating budget each year. It's a considerable hardship for us. We are a very small school. We, at this point, have no more capital funds to be able to do any more repairs or improvements because we had to wipe it all out for the asbestos abatement.
Thank you so much. And I do have a speaker card, but I'm not sure if, okay, all right. And I'm going to attempt this, but is it Mrs. Campiner? Did I say that?
Kampminer.
Kampminer.
Very close, though.
I knew I was not going to get that correct. Thank you.
No worries. Barbara Kampminer with Hancock Park and DeLong. We've been working with the district on this appeal, and I just would add one point of clarification. You do have the Citadel report as part of the agenda item, but we did bring in an industry specialist to confirm not only the presence of the asbestos-containing material, but their thoughts on whether or not it was there before the carpet removal project started. And in their 30-plus years of experience, they indicated that it would be extremely unlikely for a typical carpet removal project to actually lift up tile and mastic if that tile and mastic was in intact or good condition before the project started. So their take on it, while they couldn't give 100%, they got pretty close to what I would consider 99% in saying that if that material had been in good condition, the carpet removal project would not have disturbed it. So their take on it is that the tile and mastic was likely failing before the carpet removal occurred, and that carpet removal revealed the issue as opposed to causing the issue.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thank you both for being here and providing additional comments. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the board for any comments or questions before we move to any additional public comment. Are there comments, questions from the board? Assemblymember Davies?
Great. Thank you very much for coming today as well. Right now, where this is happening, is this not being used then? I'm just curious how much room this is taking up and where the students are.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So the students are back in the classroom. We completed the work. There are no other facilities in Camptonville. It is, I have exactly enough classrooms for the students that we have. So on the timeline for this particular project, that's why it all occurred as quickly as it did and why we took the extraordinary step to, essentially front the funding for the asbestos, because I had a handful of weeks to be able to get the classroom ready for students to return. Had we not done it, we would not have been able to open school for the fall semester.
Thank you.
Senator Laird?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm persuaded by the 99% and the fact that they were essentially there. And the real issue here is it, to me, going to 100% is a technicality. This was a danger. It was discovered. This should qualify. We should uphold the appeal. And I am even concerned with the recommendation that then we come back and codify this. So if we have a similar situation, we could not uphold the appeal. Because it seems to me that if we're getting as close as this one was, we should be approving this. And I would hate to approve a change in the rules that made it such that in the future we got this close, but oh no, we codified it and we can't get there. So at the appropriate time, I would support upholding the appeal, and I would also not be particularly thrilled about strengthening this section so that if we had a similar circumstance in the future, our hands were tied.
Thank you so much. Are there additional comments? Yes.
I agree with Senator Laird's points, and honestly, just in talking with staff and talking with folks, it seems like there's a lack of clarity in this policy, and so I not just support the repeal, but support us, taking a look at this to make sure that there's clarity. This is asbestos in schools. It's a serious situation, and we should ensure that we're doing everything we can to get these things cleaned up quickly. And them not getting funding based on a technicality, I think it's a little bit ridiculous.
Thank you. Others?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think it would be helpful if we can have staff just clarify the comment, why they think it would be helpful to draft clarifying regulations, please.
Yeah, the policy has always been, the thing about the facility hardship program is it requires no program eligibility under new construction or modernization. It's for unforeseen circumstances and part of a school construction project. All school construction projects, when you contract, and Jeremy could probably speak to this, when you do your construction contracts, you always budget for contingencies, unexpected events that you might find in the course of your project. We are concerned about the precedents this might set, just to leave it open-ended. This program is for imminent health and safety. Whenever we meet with school districts and provide advice, and there's other ones in this particular meeting too, when we provide advice, when we're walking them through the program, we really rely on those industry specialist reports before we fund the project. We need to see a demonstrated health and safety issue. What would be the fix for it before we would consider funding it? Those industry specialist reports are hired by the district. They are paid for. So we always require government concurrence to also review the reports to essentially giggle test them and make sure that the findings are legitimate before we move forward with it. So we are concerned about precedents, not necessarily this district, but there could be bad actors out there. And we don't want to see a modernization project being funded and work be found to be suddenly funded by facility hardship as a result of damage by a contractor.
Maybe I can ask a follow-up, and I appreciate the question from Juan. I wanted to kind of have a similar sense. I recognize perhaps some clarification would be helpful in the future. Can you maybe, though, speak directly to Senator Laird's comment around, is this, I mean, part of it is, in this circumstance that is presenting to us today, if this circumstance was presented to us after the proposed regulations in which you guys are, suggesting we move towards, is it a cut and dry? Would we not be able to fund that? I think we need an understanding of how much, when we're talking about, yes, we want clarity in the regulations, but at the same time, we also want to be careful that we're not, would this 99% qualify that they would then still be funded, or would they be not? I think maybe if you could speak to that for as much as you
Yeah, we're still working on the language, and that's what the second stakeholder meeting will help kind of talk about with stakeholders and what that language looks like, but we don't see it really as a technicality. We need to see a demonstrated health and safety issue that was unexpected, and those are the types of projects the facility hardship funds. And the examples we have in there for the prior asbestos, the earthquakes that happened, they were not expected. They were beyond the control of the district where this happened. This one, obviously, the district didn't do the work a contractor did, but we need to see that demonstrated issue in advance.
So I'm just wondering, as we move forward, with this specific appeal, but I think as we move forward, and if we determine that we're going to want some clarity in the regulations, if you'll, as you always do, continue to have some of these conversations with us, because I think as a board, we want to make sure we're not inadvertently cutting out, projects
right.
that might have a health and safety. And so having some clarity around, making sure we are, as you said, weeding out any potential bad actors, but also at the same time ensuring we're,
Right.
covering those projects that really do have a health and safety.
And those regs will be eventually presented to the board so they can see the final language that we land on and the reasons of how we got there. We address all stakeholder comments, whether we take them or not, to see how we get there. Asbestos is a very common building material, and while, when it's encapsulated for fireproofing, when it's encapsulated for insulation, it's not a health concern. It's a widespread building material throughout the state. And while we agree, once it's friable, it's a bad situation, and we have no problems cleaning that up under this program. It's the fact pattern and the timing of how this happens and when it's discovered.
Thank you. I appreciate the additional conversation. Did you have a comment, Ms. Kirk? Okay. Are there any other comments from board members before I move to? Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes. Assemblymember Mersucci.
Thank you very much. I just want to clarify with the question to staff. We're talking about $75,000 here.
So far, that's the cost to the district. The unknown cost is they have to, once the board approves their appeal, they will finish their plans for the DSA accessibility required upgrades to the campus as well. So that's an unknown cost. So whatever the board approves, that would be an eligible expenditure in our program as well. But $75,000 so far for the carpet replacement and the asbestos remediation.
So by supporting the appeal, we're not limited to the $75,000, but it's an open-ended.
That's correct. You're only determining eligibility under the program, and then they'll finish the funding app after we have full sets of plans, and that'll be presented at a later date.
Okay.
Sorry, conceptual approval, that does not reserve any bond authority for the project. It's basically, you're only determining that they meet the criteria of the program, that they have a health and safety issue that's fundable.
Okay.
So they will come back. They won't have to re-justify eligibility after the board's approval. We just need a full set of construction plans so we know how much the cost is going to be approved.
Okay. I appreciate the staff's concern about creating a precedent. However, given the particular circumstances that I'm hearing, I would agree with my bleeding heart colleague from the Senate and support the appeal.
All right. Any other comments before we go to the public? Okay. Are there any additional public comments either in the room or online? Seeing none in the room and none online. Okay. So is there a motion to approve the appeal? And if there is a motion, can you please clarify whether you'd like to direct staff to continue looking at, you need that as part of the motion, correct? Regulations, or is that aside? You'd like direction?
Yes, the staff recommendation would also be to, if the board is inclined to approve and there's a motion to approve, our recommendation would be to also direct staff to come back to the board with proposed regulatory amendments around the broader issue of work that's discovered in the course of another project and whether that's eligible for facility hardship. But that would be subject to a future board action and consideration.
Thank you for the clarification. Is there a motion or a question? Motion?
Let the senator go if you want to.
Hold on one second. Do you have a question or
A question.
Okay, before we take the motion, go ahead and we'll move to Member Quirk Silva.
So what's on the table is a motion to approve, but then you're also saying with additional considerations. Can we do just a motion to approve? Because what I don't want to see is a small district like this getting hung up on a timeline, which and again, my first meeting, so I have no idea how long these additional language or considerations could take, but it seems like this is fairly small in comparison to big facility construction, and so my opinion is like just move it, and then the considerations don't need to be tied to this.
Go ahead.
So if I may, just a clarifying point too, if the board opts to approve the appeal, the staff recommendation around directing, or for the board to direct us to come back with proposed regulatory amendments, that would be addressed separately from the approval of the district's requested conceptual approval that essentially they're seeking today, just approval from the board in terms of whether it qualifies under the facility hardship program, and then they would come forward subsequently with a funding application. But we would separately as staff, if that's direction from the board today, pursue proposed regulations to bring back to the board, addressing more prospective other cases.
Is that helpful? Okay. All right. So, pending any other further questions, do we have a motion? And if you can be clear about whether your motion is to approve the appeal, and then also whether we want to direct staff to look into additional clarifying regulations for cases moving forward, not this one. And then we can go from there. Or is there an additional motion?
I'll make the motion you just covered.
Okay, so a motion from Assemblymember Davies to approve the appeal, and in addition also direct staff to look into further clarifying regulations, both of which each of these would come back to the board for differing reasons in the future for the board to consider.
And I'll second that.
Oh, wait, where was my second from? Oh, gosh. Okay, thank you. And a second from Member Perez. If we could please have a roll call.
Senator Laird.
Aye.
Laird, aye. Senator Perez.
Aye.
Perez, aye. Senator Choi.
Aye.
Choi, aye. Assemblymember Marisucci.
Aye.
Marisucci, aye. Assemblymember Davies. Aye. Davies, aye. Assemblymember Quirk Silva.
Aye.
Quirk Silva, aye. Juan Morales.
Aye.
Morales, aye. Jeremy Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Ana Lasso.
Aye.
Lasso, aye. Michelle Peralt.
Aye.
Peralt, aye. That motion carries.
Thank you, and thank you again to the district for being available for questions. We appreciate you taking the time.
I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I really do appreciate this. And my now 50 kids, we're up to 50 from 48. So my 50 kids, we as a community greatly appreciate this. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead now and move on to our next appeal item, which is for Pioneer Union Elementary School District.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This appeal is on stamped pages 142 through 167 of today's agenda. This is a request from the Pioneer Union Elementary School District in El Dorado County. This district is a small school district with enrollment of 283 students in 2023-24. The district was a three-school district, but unfortunately in August 2021, the Caldor fire destroyed the entirety of one of the district's three school sites, the Walt Tyler Elementary School. The district subsequently relocated the students who had been attending that school site to another school site, the Pioneer Elementary School in nearby Somerset, California. But since that time, it's required the students to be transported across 15 miles of mountain roads with a drop in elevation of about 2,000 feet to get to that alternate school site. With this appeal request, the district is requesting the board's approval for an expedited new construction apportionment. They do have new construction eligibility under the program criteria for the request that's being presented, but the appeal is presented essentially requesting an expedited apportionment to be funded in advance of other new construction applications that were submitted prior to the submittal of this district's application. The district would be eligible to come in under the facility hardship program in this circumstance. Under that program, they would automatically, under our regulations, get first priority for consideration of funding by the board and for our processing at the Office of Public School Construction. However, in this case, the district found in working with the Office of Public School Construction that it was advantageous to apply under the new construction program. However, since there is no regulation governing or directing us to present that as a priority under that program, it is presented to the board as an appeal. I will note there is a nuance with this particular project that made it a little bit more complex in that the district does not own the land on which Walt Tyler Elementary School was previously located and where it would like to reconstruct the school. That land is owned by the federal government, the U.S. Forest Service. The district has been working with the Forest Service for, I want to say, about 2 years now on conveyance of that land to the district. So the Forest Service has indicated they do intend to convey a 3-acre parcel of land to the district at a very small sum, but that process may take up to 3 years, was the latest update, 3 more years from this point forward. The complexity that added with the fact that the district does not own that land is that the school facility program statutes and regulations have pretty specific guardrails in place when districts do not own the land on which an SFP project will be constructed or modernized. The reasoning there to be sure that there's a protection of the state interest in those cases. So statute and regulations require, in the specific case at hand here, where the federal government owns the land, the statute and the regulations require that there be a lease term of at least 25 years remaining from the time that the district submitted their application to our office. But at the time the district submitted their application, there were about 23 years remaining on their lease. The other term of the existing lease that presented a challenge in recommending approval on the request was the fact that the existing agreement with the federal government specified that construction needed to have been completed by the end of last year, but the district needs additional time, and that construction has not yet occurred. Accordingly, the staff recommendation on this item, we do certainly recognize the challenges faced by the district with the extraordinary and unfortunate circumstance that they lost the entire school site due to fire. And we are supportive of their request to seek funding for reconstruction of that school site. We also would support the district's request for an expedited apportionment in this case, and we note for the board's reference that that action would be consistent with prior board actions granting expedited apportionments under new construction and modernization programs when we've seen similar cases in the past of schools destroyed by fire and seeking funding from the state toward reconstruction. The nuance here is that due to the complexity with the land being owned by the federal government, we do also recommend that there be a special condition that prior to fund release, if the board approves the appeal today, we would recommend that the board specify that before fund release can occur, the district must provide either an amended agreement with the U.S. Forest Service that complies with those programmatic, statutory, and regulatory requirements, or documentation that the conveyance of the land has occurred and the district has taken ownership of the site. We are pleased to report that in meeting with the district's CBO on Friday, as well as in conversation with the U.S. Forest Service, the Forest Service is amenable to making those amendments to their existing agreement, and the district had a proposed amendment already executed with the Forest Service that is awaiting final signature and finalization. So we are hopeful that if the board opts to approve the district's appeal with the condition on fund release that staff would recommend, that they would be able to meet that condition and proceed with fund release, hopefully in the near future.
I'm going to go to the district, but can you just clarify again, this is an interesting circumstance with the federal piece to it. I heard you say that transaction could take several years. Is that still the case?
So the piece that may take several years is that the U.S. Forest Service intends to convey 3 acres of land to the district. So the district would actually end up owning the land at the end of that process. But that has been a lengthy process, and the Forest Service indicates it may be 3 more years before it's completed. Okay. The piece that seems to be progressing well on a shorter term is an amendment to the existing agreement between the district and the Forest Service to address just those 2 provisions that currently would preclude their eligibility for funding under the school facility program.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I heard that.
Yes.
And that concludes your...
I realized I should mention amount here as well for their appeal. So the appeal request in this case, if the board opts to approve the appeal, it would provide an apportionment of $1.7 million approximately for the new construction project.
Thank you so much. Okay. Before I move to the board for questions, I believe we do have district representatives here, and I want to give them an opportunity if either of you would like to provide comments, or you can be available for questions, whatever you choose. And I'm sorry, is it Ms. Howard? Is that correct? Ms. Kelly Howard. Thank you.
Yes. My name is Kelly Howard. I'm the Chief Business Officer for Pioneer Union School District. I would like to note that there's no elementary in our name and that there are several Pioneer Union elementary school districts in the state, and that has been challenging for all of us, I'm sure. I would like to thank the board for hearing our appeal this evening. This has been a really challenging time period for our school district. And in light of what happened in January in Southern California with the additional fires, I can only imagine just the amount of groundwork that's being laid for future school districts. But 3 years to recover a school district from total devastation is a long time. And there are students that started there, and they might have been kindergartners or they might have been 3rd graders. And for the majority of those kids, their parents attended Walt Tyler or Pioneer at some point. And it was a really special place for all of them. And once that was lost, and we, immediately addressed the community in a very positive, excited, we're going to go forward and we're going to rebuild the school, bring it back right away intention. And for it to turn into 3 years, we have some students who will never return to Walt Tyler Elementary and have had to age out of that program. And so it's been really, really difficult for the community and for the staff and for the students, and that there isn't a mechanism, a trigger mechanism for us to be able to receive the funding that is necessary. And considering that we started with a 2-room schoolhouse and are putting back a 2-room schoolhouse that originally cost the district $192,000, that is now a $9 million project. There's just a lot, to evaluate, and for small school districts with limited staffing to navigate this process has been a lot of challenge as well. So I do appreciate the assistance that the staff at OPSC has provided us. There's been a lot of guidance and a lot of information, and they're very open, and we're just really happy to be here today. So thank you for listening and considering us.
Thank you so much. Okay. Are there questions or comments from the board? Yes, Mr. Morales.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to congratulate the district. They have gone through a lot. I know that we started working with them since the Caldor fire, and it's a small school district, a very small school district facing a lot of different challenges. So congratulations. They have a great team that's helped them get this far. I know that this is going to go a long way in getting this funding expedited, so I would move to approve the recommendation with the condition.
Thank you. Second.
Okay. Before we get there, are there any other comments or questions? Yeah. Yes, Director Lasso.
I do have a question simply on the amendment to the existing agreement. Ms. Kirk, you mentioned that currently we'd like to have 25 years on an agreement in order to make an appropriation. The amendment to the existing agreement is it that an extension of the lease? And what will if that's the extension of the lease, what will the amendment give us in terms of extra years?
Sure, thank you for that question. To clarify, statute requires, well, backing up a tiny bit, originally when the school facility program was established in 1998, it did not allow for funding of any project that was not on a district-owned property. Subsequently, there were amendments that authorized in certain circumstances that could be the case. Specifically, one of those circumstances is if the federal government owns the property and there's an agreement, a lease agreement between the federal government and the district with at least a 25-year term lease. School facility program regulations add specificity that that 25-year term is measured from the date of the application submittal to the Office of Public School Construction. So in the district's case, they had what was originally a 25-year term lease, the current lease that's in place, but at the time of their application, which I believe was October 2024, there were roughly 23 years remaining on that term. So that was one of the issues with the existing lease that would preclude, under the statutes and regulations, school facility program funding in that case. That's part of why we recommended the contingency on fund release. So it wouldn't preclude the board's consideration of approving the appeal today and an apportionment today, but it would provide that the district must meet that requirement prior to actually receiving the funds from the state. The federal government, one of the issues that we outlined both in working with Ms. Howard as well as with the U.S. Forest Service on this was that one of the provisions in an amendment would be to extend the term of the existing agreement so that it is at least 25 years from the date the district applied, which would make it compliant with the statutes and regulations in place. The second issue was that the existing agreement specified the district had to complete construction of the school by December 31st, 2024, and that has not yet occurred. And so it was the second amendment was to extend that period of time under which the district can complete construction.
So the amendment is for the extension of the construction, not the term of the lease?
Both.
Okay.
Extending both provisions
Okay.
specifically.
Thank you.
Assemblymember Davies?
Thank you. Do we have any idea how long it would actually take to get an updated lease agreement to meet the 25-year term requirement. I'm just curious, is this something that can be done in a couple months, or is this something that could take years? And again, the longer we wait, the more expensive the project is going to be. We know that from labor to materials.
Absolutely. The reason that they moved toward an amendment to the existing lease is due to the fact that there is the intention to convey the property kind of puts a wrench in the extension or the revision of issuing a new special use permit from the federal government. There's some provisions in their laws that indicate that an agreement like this that's been in existence for such a long period of time with another public agency, the property should have been conveyed or should be conveyed, and starting over with a special use permit is something that above, the folks that we're dealing with isn't preferred. They don't want to go through the motions of that additional step when the real intention is just to convey the land.
So I understand that, but again, are you going to be able to get results from that, or it sounds like no?
No, they've
Right.
moved to an amendment to the existing special use permit to extend the timeline of the permit itself and to the construction timeline. And then while that is in place, they're still moving towards the conveyance. With the application is in, they indicated that that would be resolved within a couple of years.
So again, it could take years to be able to get what we're asking for in order to have the funding given to you.
It sounds like what they're doing is they're going to extend the lease to make it to the 25 years, the 23 to 25. In addition, extend the permitting timeframes so they can build. And then while they're doing that, negotiate the purchase. Is that
Correct?
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it'll happen concurrently.
Essentially, our permit, it has been extended just with an amendment rather than a revision
Like
of the
a
new
revision.
permit.
So the funds would flow once we have receipt of that extension on the lease.
So the
correct?
recommendation, actually, you're good with?
Yes.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Appreciate the clarification, because I think it's a little confusing between the lease and then the purchase. Okay. Any other public comments? None in the room and none online. Okay, we'll bring it on back then. I believe I had a motion by Mr. Morales to take staff recommendation to approve the expedited apportionment contingent upon the funds would be contingent upon the district approving, as we just spoke about, the extension of the lease and meeting the 25-year term. And I heard several seconds. I believe I heard a second from Choi and Perez as well, so I'll let you choose. But we do have a first and a second, so if you'll go ahead and call roll.
Thank you. Senator Laird.
Aye.
Laird, aye. Senator Perez. Aye. Perez, aye. Senator Choi.
Aye.
Choi, aye. Assembly Member Murasucci.
Aye.
Murasucci, aye. Assembly Member Davies.
Aye.
Davies, aye. Assembly Member Quirk Silva.
Aye.
Quirk Silva, aye. Juan Morales.
Aye.
Morales, aye. Jeremy Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Ana Lasso. Aye. Lasso, aye. Michelle Peralt.
Aye.
Peralt, aye. And that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you again, and we appreciate you coming down and providing clarification. And we do really wish you good luck on getting that school rebuilt. It sounds like it's very important to the community, so we're happy to hear and happy to see that move along. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our final appeal for Mountain Empire Unified School District.
Thank you. I'm on stamp page 168 of the agenda. This appeal is for Mountain Empire Unified School District. Mountain Empire Unified School District has 11 schools. It's the most southeastern school district in San Diego County, bordering Mexico and the Imperial County on the east. The district is a very mountainous terrain, which is kind of important in particular this case. Their elevation varies from 2,500 to 6,000 feet above sea level. The district covers over 660 square miles. This appeal is for advanced design funding for their Mount Empire High School facility hardship project the board already approved previously, and financial hardship status based on other evidence for a period of 12 months. Under the financial hardship program, there are two criteria that a district meets. The first is that they are leveling the maximum developer fees allowed by law. At the time the district submitted their conceptual approval in 2023, they were leveling the maximum fee allowed by law, but in 2024, when their funding application was submitted, the board had adjusted it in January 2024. So the district will need to update their developer fees before the board can take any approval on their funding. The second criteria is there's three criteria for automatically qualifying after you're leveling the maximum fee. The first one is that the district has a long-term debt capacity of over 60%. The district currently has a debt capacity of 29.05%. Another automatic qualifying criteria is the district has passed a Prop 29 bond in the last 2 years. The last successful bond for this school district was in 2018. Or if the district has a total bonding capacity of less than $5 million. I would note that under Proposition 2, it did raise that threshold to $15 million and below could automatically qualify, but this district's total bonding capacity is $48 million. So they don't meet the automatic qualifying criteria under the program. So they are applying for the board's consideration under other evidence. There isn't set criteria for other evidence. The board has heard a variety of cases over the years, 17 in fact, which are outlined on Attachment C, and there's been mixed approvals over time. In developing staff's recommendations, we work with the school district, ask a lot of questions in terms of working with them to see where they are from a recommendation standpoint. So a little bit of history on this project. Back in January 2022, they did hire a structural engineering firm to review their high school project, and there's 3 buildings that were found that had significant structural issues. The board has already approved in December of 2023 that this project meets the criteria in the program. At the time of that conceptual approval, there's estimated cost roughly $28 million for repairing that project. That's not the full cost. It could go up after the project is actually designed and they have full construction plans, and that's where the district's request is today. With financial hardship approval, they are allowed to get advanced design funding to move forward with their project. In looking at the district's bond history, on page 170, we have a chart there. Since 1998, the district has attempted 5 bond measures in their district. 2 were successful. In advance of this appeal, they did try again after we talked to the district with their circumstances surrounding this project. So they did try in March 5th of 2024 to put a bond measure on the ballot for $20 million. They were unsuccessful in reaching the 55% threshold for passing that ballot measure. They only had 51% positive votes. So the last successful bond measure was in November of 2018 for $15 million, which they just barely passed at 55.39%. That $15 million they believed was the highest their voters would accept based on polling to pass that measure. Since 2018, that $15 million has been fully spent on other district projects, so it's not available for this particular project. In another consideration that staff worked on in working with the district was with the bonding capacity. If the district had borrowed, having not passed a local bond, we asked could they borrow $15 million to exceed the 60% debt threshold to automatically qualify for the program, use that $15 million and start all of their projects throughout the campus. You'll see in Attachment B, they kind of have a lengthy document of issues going around throughout the district that they estimate will cost roughly $187 million to repair across the district for their condition issues. So we thought if you have $15 million, they can get a lot of those projects started, apply to our program for facility hardship, and move forward. In looking at their request, the district talked to their San Diego County Office of Education, who has submitted a letter on the district's behalf, and that's included in Attachment D. Based on that recommendation, San Diego COE submitted a letter that basically said they would not support any borrowing on the district's part because of their current financial situation. Their 24-25 first interim report is currently at a qualified certification, which means the district may not meet its financial obligations during the next 2 years. The district has projected deficit spending of $4.2 million for the 24-25 fiscal year and may actually have to borrow funds from the county treasury to meet payroll in 2025. The district's annual operating budget is roughly $40 million. Contributing to their financial situation, they had an enrollment decrease of 135 students. resulting in a projection over the next 3 years of loss of $3 million in funding through LCFF. In this particular district, I mentioned the large square area they cover, 660 square miles area, and their large busing students. Throughout the district is roughly 7% of the district's budget, which the district has indicated is more than double the average in the state for costs, and that all contributes to the district's financial situation. As I mentioned before, so looking at all these different criteria with that in mind, the board has considered 17 prior requests, 9 were approved as requested, 3 were partially approved, and the 5 remaining were not approved. For this requested design funding, the total design funding is estimated at $5.7 million, of which the district share would be $2.8 million. The district does have roughly $1.1 million available in local funds to contribute towards that. The net result would be $4.6 million in state funding for this appeal. So in considering all these different factors and in light of the San Diego COE request, staff supports the district's request. Typically, staff only supports requests for financial hardship under other evidence in unique or extreme circumstances. Because looking at the bonding capacity, the bond indebtedness of the district, it would imply that they do have plenty of ability to borrow their match. But in this case, looking at the San Diego COE's letter and the district's financial circumstances, we're okay with this particular one. In December of 2024, OPSC did tour the district sites and evaluated their facility hardship issues. We would concur they have a lot of potential there of issues that they can apply to our program for. This money would help the district move forward a lot of those projects on top of the project they're being applied for. Typically, financial hardship status is a district-wide status, and it's good for 6 months. All applications submitted within that 6-month period qualify for financial hardship. In this case, they are asking for a 12-month window. In touring the district and seeing the amount of work they would need to do to generate industry special reports, obtain those government concurrences, we think 12 months is appropriate in this particular case. For the board options, we've recommended 3 options from staff's perspective. Approve financial hardship status under other evidence for a period of 12 months. Consistent with prior appeals, we are recommending that the board approve this design-only apportionment, but add a qualifying factor there, consistent with prior appeals, that before the district applies for financial hardship for the full construction phase of this project, to at least attempt a voter measure for the construction phase of the remaining part of the project. The district has orally spoken to OPSC and conveyed that they would attempt a bond in November of 2026 to attempt their matching share, so they are okay with that recommendation. The last recommendation, for this particular appeal, the district is requesting a direct apportionment, meaning cash now for the project. Staff has recommended unfunded approval, and that is because in the other part of this agenda at the board's request in January, we're recommending all available cash be approved for disaster assistance. But we would normally approve direct apportionments had the fires not happened in January. So we are okay with the unfunded approval or apportionment. Our recommended on the item is unfunded approval. From a process standpoint, if the board were to approve these recommendations, regardless of whether it's unfunded approval or an apportionment, we would bring back a funding shell. We're guessing roughly the April SAB meeting after the district has their developer fees updated. They indicated, I believe, April 9th, 11th, right around there is their next board meeting where they'll get approved, and they can speak to that as well. So with that, I'm open to questions, and the district is here available for questions as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Before I move to the board, I know I do have one speaker card, which I think is from the district. Dr. Keeley, district superintendent, and Ms. Silverman, the consultant. I don't know if you'd like to provide some additional comments.
Thank you very much for considering this, and I wanted to just extend a thank you to Michael and Rebecca. They got most of the district tour back in December on an incredibly windy 70-mile-plus per hour winds. Quite an adventure out there. I also wanted to just extend a thank you to the members of the board here and your staff for making yourselves or your staff available for us to meet with this week. We do appreciate the opportunity being presented to the board, especially the potential for an immediate apportionment so we can get this work going upon completion of our justification study, which is slated for board approval on April 15th. And then we look forward to the opportunity to address the significant issues that we're facing with our facilities in order to improve the learning conditions for our children. I'm available for whatever questions. I can recite this stuff in my sleep about the school district, so.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I am going to go ahead and take one other public comment because I believe we have staff from Senator Padilla's office. And I'm going to mispronounce your name. Matul Kalra, is that close? If you'd like to speak, and then we'll bring it back to the board and other public.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Senator Padilla apologizes. He had to return to his district. My name is Mithil Kalra, and I'm a member of his office. I will be reading a brief statement from the senator. I humbly request this board approve the Mountain Empire Unified School District's appeal with respect to an apportionment for the Mountain Empire High School Facility Hardship Grant. The high school is in a high-need community, and unfortunately, the conditions at the school have become an unsuitable learning environment. The district has scheduled an election this fall to pass a bond to secure the funding necessary to address the conditions at the school, but waiting for that election could hinder progress on critical projects to make the school suitable for students. Approving this bridge funding will allow the district to address the needs of students in one of the poorest regions of our state. Senator Padilla urges the board to see the immediate need of this community and grant the hardship status as well as apportion the funds the school needs to begin to remedy these deficiencies. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. Comments or questions from the board? Yes, Members Quirk-Silver.
Again, not being too pushy here, but I'm an educator by profession, almost 30 years in the elementary classroom. So I know firsthand that when these requests come through, it's because these facilities need to be repaired now. This district is a very vulnerable district that borders on our border, in fact. But if you look at the letter of supports on page 191, you have support letters from Assembly Member Carl DeMaio, Assembly Member or Board of Supervisor, 2nd District Anderson. You have a letter of support from Senator Brian Jones and a letter of support and just spoken from their field representative, Senator Padilla. In the climate we are, we don't obviously always agree, and yet we have bipartisan letters here saying, let's move this and let's do this now. So I support that.
Thank you so much. Any other comments or questions from members? Make sure. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Okay. But before I move, I've noted that, Assemblymember Mersucci. Before I move to that, let me just go back one more time and see if there's any other general public comment, if I don't have any other board members. Okay. Other public comment? Oh, yes.
I just wanted to clarify, is that a motion for immediate apportionment?
I'll ask that. We'll get that clarification.
Well,
But
Lisa got up, and so she's
yeah,
about to
I
get in my
understand.
ear.
But before we get there, is there any other general public comment on this item here in the room or online? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to take it back to Assemblymember Mersucci, who made the motion. Assemblymember, can you clarify if you are moving to approve the district's appeal request as written by staff? I think what we need clarity on is whether or not you're approving an unfunded approval or whether you're approving a direct apportionment.
It's my understanding that the staff recommendation is to approve an unfunded approval.
That is correct.
So as staff is recommending, I make that motion.
Okay. So just so clarity, we have a recommendation to approve the staff's recommendation, which is to approve the hardship with other evidence of reasonable effort for 12 months, require the district attempt to pass another local bond measure, and approve an unfunded approval for design funding. Is there a second, or is there another?
I just want a clarification.
Yes, Director Lasso.
The clarification I'd like from staff is it's the motion as Ms. Peralt just outlined, but I also heard that the district would bring back a report, a report by April 9th or 11th, and then this can be considered again by the board, by the state allocation board for apportionment.
For this particular item, the board is deciding whether to approve the district's appeal for a direct apportionment or staff's recommendation for an unfunded approval. Regardless of which way the board goes, we will bring back the actual funding shell, because it's not attached to this item, reflecting the board's actions, conditional upon the district providing us the updated developer study in advance of that meeting.
And the developer study is April 9th, right? Is that what
April
I heard?
15th.
15th.
15th
Okay.
is our board meeting.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so the follow-up item would come in the consent agenda to follow whatever the board decides to do today.
Got it.
And
Thank you.
perhaps, staff, I think it might be helpful, because we do have new members and we have other, can you maybe just give just a quick tutorial on what the difference is between both timeline and otherwise, whether we go unfunded or whether it's a direct apportionment? I think that would be helpful in the context of time frame for the district.
So in this request, as you'll recall, they're requesting a 12-month extension to get all these applications in-house, and the district's requested direct apportionment will help them move all the potential other projects in addition to this project forward. Under the unfunded approval, as staff recommended, how the processes work, if the board would approve that, presuming the district has their developer fee study done in April, we bring an unfunded approval shell to the April board meeting. Then in May, the district would request a bond sale proceeds from a Proposition 2 that happens generally in the fall. So somewhere around September, October, they get it their cash apportionment. So that's roughly 8 months from now. If the board would choose a direct apportionment now, we would take general proceeds. It would reduce the amount available for local assistance for the disaster fires in the action item part of our section. Roughly $182 million is available. Their $4.6 million would reduce the $182 that's available for that other item. But that would provide a direct apportionment cash now. We would bring that funding item for the exact dollar amount to the April board, and then they can move forward as soon as they sign construction contracts in April. So roughly 6 months faster than going the other process.
So just for absolute simplification, because I know I went round and round on this also for my own understanding, we're talking about a difference of about 6 months, whether we do it as an unfunded approval versus a direct apportionment. The direct apportionment, if that was the route we went, would come out of the general fund pot that we will be discussing later related to disaster relief. The unfunded approval would be would come out of the bond sale in the fall, really, and is when they'd be. So just, I think it's helpful for us to kind of understand those two clarifications. Yes, Member Quirk-Silva, and I do realize we still have a motion on the table, so.
So I'm presenting a motion for immediate direct apportionment. I do not want to see them moved into, even though 6 months sounds like not a very long time, they've already been in this waiting pattern. And although we know the new fire, if you want to say schools that are impacted, that of course is extremely important, but my motion is for immediate direct apportionment.
Okay, let's bring it back. Assemblymember Marisucci, you have the initial motion. I want to just make sure you are still wanting to move forward with that after hearing additional comment, or do you want to make an amendment to your motion, or are you fine moving it as you originally stated as an unfunded approval?
I'll stick with the staff recommendation.
Okay, so what we need to do then, I think, is we need to take up the initial motion by Assemblymember Marisucci, if we have a second, and then we will move to, oh, go ahead, Steph. Yes, Ms. Kirk.
I apologize. Just
Don't
to also add clarification before any vote on either motion on the table, I'd like to clarify that both motions also include approval of the district's financial hardship status under other evidence, which staff does recommend support, and also the requirement that the district be attempt to pass a local bond before coming back with a subsequent request for financial hardship status if that extended 12-month period they've requested expires. That is a condition that the district indicated they're amenable to and that they would be willing to pursue. So I just want to ensure and clarify whether those other aspects of the appeal are recommended for inclusion in one or both motions on the table.
Assemblymember Marsucci, when you said you are recommending staff approval, all three of those items, correct? Is what you are moving? Okay. And I just want to clarify.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So Senator Laird, yes.
I just have a procedural question. I don't understand what we're doing here. If I want to support the second motion, do I vote against the first motion? What are we doing here?
Well, let's wait and see if we actually have a second to the original motion. If we have a second, then we'll take it up for a vote. And then, Senator, absolutely, it is your choice to either vote no, abstain, or otherwise. But let's see if we have a second to the initial motion from Assemblymember Marsucci.
Madam Chair, just at the risk of sounding redundant, I just want to make clear. The original motion, the unfunded approval, means cash in October.
Correct.
Versus the alternative motion, which is to get a direct apportionment now.
Correct.
And cash as early as April.
Correct, out of general fund.
Thank you.
Both motions include proving financial hardship status based on other evidence for 12 months and requiring the district to attempt to pass another local bond measure, both of which the district has said they are, fine with. So.
Thank you.
Is that, okay, helpful? Okay. All right, so we do have a motion on the table. Is there a second to the original motion, which is an unfunded approval along with the other two items as already stated? Okay. All right. Seeing no second, Assemblymember Marsucci, we're going to table that. And that motion does not move forward. We have a second motion on the table by Member Quirk-Silva, again, approving financial hardship for 12 months, requiring the district to attempt to pass another local bond measure, and improving a direct apportionment for design funding. So we have a first. And we have a second from Assemblymember Davies. So, if we could please have a roll call.
Certainly. Senator Laird?
Aye.
Laird, aye. Senator Perez?
Aye.
Perez, aye. Senator Choi? Aye. Choi, aye. Assemblymember Marsucci?
No.
Marsucci, no. Assemblymember Davies? Aye. Davies, aye. Assemblymember Quirk-Silva? Aye. Quirk-Silva, aye. Juan Morales?
Aye.
Morales, aye. Jeremy Smith?
Aye.
Smith, aye. Ana Lasso?
Aye.
Lasso, aye. Michelle Peralt?
Aye.
Peralt, aye. And that motion does carry. The second motion carries.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you for being here, district as well. And we wish you luck on moving forward with your project.
Thank you very much for your support.
All right. Okay. With that, we will go ahead and move forward onto our action items. Ms. Kirk, if you'd present the action item approving the successor charters, that's what I'm on, right? Am I on the right thing? Okay, thank you. The successor charter school applicant for charter school facilities program funded project formerly known as Today's Fresh Start.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first action item is on page 406 through page 412 of today's agenda. This item requests that the board approve a successor charter school applicant for the charter school facilities program funded project formerly occupied by Today's Fresh Start. Under the charter school facilities program, an apportionment was made in March 2013 to Today's Fresh Start. The original apportionment amount was about $19.1 million, of which about $9.6 million was a loan for the local match required by the program. From this apportionment, or with this apportionment, Today's Fresh Start acquired a site and constructed a 19-classroom elementary school within the boundaries of the Inglewood Unified School District. In June 2020, Today's Fresh Start ceased operation of the school due to non-renewal of its charter school petition. Because Today's Fresh Start is no longer using the facility for charter school purposes, it triggers provisions in statute for identification of a potential successor charter school to take over that facility. The Inglewood Unified School District conducted a process to solicit information from any interested prospective successor charter school for the facility. There was one application received from that process. The application came from Green Dot Public Schools, Animo City of Champions Charter High School. The Charter School Facilities Program is jointly administered by the Office of Public School Construction and the California School Finance Authority under the purview of the State Treasurer's Office. The California School Finance Authority Board did find last week, in fact, the applicant, Green Dot's Animo City of Champions Charter High School, to be financially sound, which is a precursor or a required element before the board could consider designating them as a successor charter school for the facility. The staff recommendation on this item is to designate the Green Dot Public Schools, Animo City of Champions Charter High School as the successor charter school for that property. That entails a number of essentially procedural steps that are outlined in the recommendations on this item on page 407. At a high level, essentially the prior apportionment to today's Fresh Start would be canceled. There would be a new apportionment issued in the name of the successor charter school. The successor charter school, in accordance with the statutes governing identification of a successor charter school, would take possession of the facility on equal terms as the prior applicant, which in part would entail the Animo City of Champions taking over the remaining loan amount, which is approximately $8.8 million for the project. Staff does recommend, as I'd said, approval of this item and all of the 6 procedural recommendations therein on page 407. I'm pleased to address any questions.
Thank you so much. And I do believe we have representatives from Green Dot and Animo on the Zoom. I don't know if any of you would like to make any comments before we move into board questions. I'm trying to see who we have. I'm not sure who wants to speak. If it's Christina, is that?
3 of us who have prepared something to share.
Sorry, say that again.
There are 3 of us on the line that have prepared public comment.
Okay, if you're prepared to comment or you're there for questions?
Both.
Okay, then go ahead. Whoever wants to go first, go ahead and move forward with your comments then.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, State Allocation Board members. My name is Christina De Jesus, and I am the CEO of Green Dot Public Schools, a public charter organization with 18 schools, nearly 10,000 students, and 25 years of experience as an operator of public charter schools in Los Angeles. I want to express my sincere appreciation to CSFA and OPSC for their recommendation to approve Animo City of Champions as a successor charter school. The facility being voted on today will allow the school to continue to proudly serve the Inglewood community and to offer a high-quality education to many more students in the future. This is a school with a strong academic track record for preparing students for college, leadership, and life. Last year, 84% of seniors graduated fulfilling the A through G requirements for UC and CSU admission, a rate that was 32 percentage points above the state average. It is also a school that helps students and their families feel seen and supported, with over 90% of families responding on our annual survey that they would recommend the school to a friend. I want to assure the State Allocation Board that this facility will be in very capable hands with Green Dot and Animo City of Champions. We are proud of what the school has accomplished to date and know the best is yet to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure if it's Ms. Garcia or Ms. Cooks who's going to go first next, but go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, board members. On behalf of Animo City of Champions, I want to express our deepest gratitude for your support of our school site. Your decision to allow us the opportunity to establish a permanent home in the city of Inglewood is more than just a vote. It is an investment in our students, our families, and the future of this community. This home will provide stability, opportunity, and a space for our students where they can thrive for generations to come. Thank you for believing in our mission and for your unwavering support. We are excited to see what's ahead and look forward to continuing this partnership. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Cooks?
Yes, good afternoon, Office of Public School Construction and State Allocation Board. I am Sincere Cooks, a founding administrator and proud principal of Animo City of Champions Charter High School, a proud Green Dot school located in the city of Inglewood. I'm speaking today to express our gratitude to the OPSC team and State Allocation Board for recommending approval of our application for the Charter Schools Facilities Program. Having a long-term facility is a dream come true for our school. This new site will improve our campus, offering more space for instructional programming and our resources as we prepare students to be community game changers. Our school currently serves around 300 scholars, providing high-quality instruction and community programs focused on college and career success. Last year, our school had a 91% graduation rate and an 84% A through G completion rate for both the UC and CSU admissions. This new campus will support our robust programs, including college preparation to accelerate college-going rates for our Black scholars, wraparound services, and an entrepreneurship program for all students. The new site will be a source of pride for our students, parents, and community. We look forward to continuing our growth in this new space as a beneficiary of this great program, and thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you all for being available in here. Are there any comments or questions from board members on this item? I'd like to say, I really appreciate Green Dot and Animo moving forward and looking at this facility as an opportunity. This has been a long road with that facility not being utilized, and so I think, at least from my perspective, I'm glad to see an entity coming in and utilizing it, particularly in the region you serve. So thank you so much for moving through all of the steps and working with staff. With that, are there any public comments on this item? Seeing none here in the room. Okay, is there a motion then to approve and recommend a successor charter school Green Dot Public School is a successor charter school applicant?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Smith and a second by Assemblymember Choi. If we could go ahead and call the roll.
Certainly. Senator Laird?
Oh, I think he has actually left.
I just had to call his name because it's part of the protocol.
I just wanted to make sure you knew, sorry. He
Yes,
put a
and
note
I
in.
did
Okay,
realize that, yes.
Great.
Senator Perez?
Aye.
Perez, aye. Senator Choi?
Aye.
Choi, aye. Assemblymember Murasucci?
Aye.
Murasucci, aye. Assemblymember Davies? Davies, aye. Assemblymember Quirk Silva? Aye. Quirk Silva, aye. Juan Morales?
Aye.
Morales, aye. Jeremy Smith?
Aye.
Smith, aye. Ana Lasso?
Aye.
Lasso, aye. Michelle Peralt?
Aye.
Peralt, aye. And that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And I need to send an apology down to my colleagues here to the left of the table. I think at one point or other throughout this meeting, I've referred to both of you as assembly members and your senators, and I apologize for that. Okay. Let's move now on to our next action item, which is recommendations for board assistance to school districts impacted by the 2025 Southern California wildfires.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item is on stamped pages 413 through 418 of today's agenda. At the January 22nd, 2025 State Allocation Board meeting, during the executive officer's statement, there was a robust conversation regarding the wildfires that caused substantial destruction in the communities of Altadena and Palisades within Los Angeles County. In the course of that conversation, the board chair requested that staff bring back an action item for the board's consideration at this meeting to take a look at what recommendations we may be able to provide, specifically considering whether the available general fund resources previously provided for the school facility program could be used as a means of providing expedited assistance if there were requests for funding from the impacted school districts. As an overview, there were 3 school sites within the LA Unified School District that were destroyed or significantly damaged by the Palisades fire. In addition, there were 5 school sites destroyed or significantly damaged within the Pasadena Unified School District by the Eaton fire. We have approximately, with the board actions on the appeals in today's agenda, there's approximately $176.4 million in general fund remaining for school facility program projects. The recommendation from staff for the board's consideration with this item is to consider reserving this remaining general fund authority of approximately $176.4 million to support the board's ability to consider providing direct apportionments to the school districts directly impacted by the January 2025 wildfires if they submit funding requests under the new Proposition 2 disaster assistance provisions by August 31st, 2025. We also would recommend that if the board adopts this action, that it also specify now that any amount of general fund authority remaining after the board has considered applications for disaster assistance funding submitted by August 31st, 2025, should be apportioned to other school facility program projects by December 31st, 2025. The reasoning for that timeframe is that our remaining general fund resources must be encumbered by December 31st, 2025. So to the extent there is a balance remaining, we would recommend that the board specify now that that balance be made available before the end of the year for apportionment to other projects. I'll just note that typically and historically, the school facility program has been exclusively a bond-funded program through statewide general obligation bonds. However, in the 2021, 2022, and 2023 Budget Acts, one-time general fund was provided to support the program when there were no bonds available. At that time, or the balance that I just mentioned based on today's actions, the balance of $176.4 million general fund is what remains from those previous budgetary actions. So again, I've outlined the staff recommendations, which are on stamped page 417, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Comments or questions from the board? Yes, Director Lawson.
Just want to say thank you for doing the quick math. I was trying to do it on my paper as you were making the votes. But I just want to say a really heartfelt thank you to you, Ms. Kirk, and to your entire team, because not only have you been working around the clock to make our regular meetings, but over the weekends, you and Michael and the team have been out there at roundtables with other members of the DGS team as well to support the schools. And upon hearing the appeals today, you know, we, being from Southern California, I know that our school districts down there are in dire need, as well as those that have come with appeals. And I was trying to quickly do the math of, you know, what we might get in requests. So I also find a lot of wisdom in asking for our support to, after the school sites that have been affected by the wildfires make their requests, that whatever else is remaining that we allocated to the other school districts throughout the state that are also on a list, that are on a wait list, that you know exactly what they need so that we can allocate all the funds. So that's all I really wanted to say, but thanks for the math.
Great. Appreciate that. Other comments? Yes, Senator Perez.
Yes, thank you. You know, I've first of all just want to thank staff and acknowledge, you know, the hard work that they've been doing to make sure that this is getting expedited. You know, I'm new to this board, and that is because I just got elected this past November and represent the Pasadena, Altadena area, as well as Eaton Canyon and all of the regions that have been impacted by the Eaton Canyon fires. So, you know, this has been a really shocking time, I think, for many in our community to have an event like this occur in urban Los Angeles. And I've talked with so many families, you know, teachers, parents, students who just so badly want to be able to go back to school and to see, you know, their friends. And I think what's been so reassuring has been how responsive folks have been and just expediting this timeline and being able to tell people that, you know, we're moving at a pace that's faster than any pace that we've worked at before has been really reassuring. So, I know that takes a lot of effort behind the scenes. Government's not typically known for moving very quickly, so it's meant a lot to me and my constituents that you all are prioritizing this, and it means so much to students and to families that want to see their communities be rebuilt, and want to see us make this a priority. So, I really thank you for this, and I'm really excited to be able to give that update to the Pasadena Unified School District, and I'm certain Senator Allen, who represents the Palisades area, will feel the same. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll go ahead and move this for approval.
Great. So before we move on to that, and appreciate the words, Senator Choi, did you have some comments? Second. A second? Okay.
Just a comment.
Okay. A comment? Yes.
Yeah,
Assembly
just a
Member
comment
Davis.
on that, and, I agree with you on this, but I just think that as legislators, let's hope that we're able to streamline these developments and this construction so that if we're going to move forward and hopefully get the funding to them quicker than normally, that it's going to be used quicker than normally. And so I think that's, our responsibility to make sure that we are able to look at CEQA and move this quicker so that it's going hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, Assemblymember Kurtzova.
Thank you. My question is on the list of the schools. Is this a total list of all the schools that have been impacted?
It is reflective of the public schools that sustained either complete destruction or significant damage from the two fires. There were also a number of private schools that were either destroyed or significantly damaged in the fires.
Okay. And I do concur with my colleagues up here that obviously urgency is something that I think everybody wants to see. This morning we were on a hearing related to the fires, related to housing and emergency services, and some of the same discussion about how are we going to move the services necessary for the community, whether it's housing, whether it's accessing insurance claims, all of these things. So it is an effort that is like no other, but we definitely take into account the fires from before, because these are not the only fires in California. We have them up and down the state. I had a tour in Paradise and Chico just this July or June, I believe it was, and there is rebuilding happening, and there are rebuilding of schools and facilities, but the timeline is much slower than any of us are hoping for, and we can learn from not just California, from Hawaii, from other places. So if anything, I think urgency and streamlining have to mean something as we have these conversations.
Great, thank you. All right, other comments? Okay, any public comments, either in the room or online? I'm seeing none. Okay, we have a motion by Senator Perez and a second by Senator Choi. If we could please have a roll call.
Senator Perez?
Aye.
Perez, aye. Senator Choi?
Aye.
Choi, aye. Assemblymember Marisucci?
Aye.
Marisucci, aye. Assemblymember Davies? Aye. Davies, aye. Assemblymember Quirk Silva? Aye. Quirk Silva, aye. Juan Morales? Aye. Morales, aye. Jeremy Smith?
Aye.
Smith, aye. Ana Lasso?
Aye.
Lasso, aye. Michelle Peralt?
Aye.
Peralt, aye, and that motion carries.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll go ahead now and move on to our reports, discussion, and information items. Ms. Kirk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reports, discussion, and information items are on stamped pages 419 through 487 of today's agenda. I'll just highlight two quick things. One, we do have an annual report included in that section that is a local audits update. It reflects a report out on the audits from the school facility program that were certified by the State Controller's Office last year in calendar year 2024. During that time, at a high level, there were 689 project audits certified. Of those, 10 had audit findings. So I'd just like to sort of highlight that that's less than 2% of those projects that were certified, that had audits certified last year, that had audit findings for the program. And I'd really just like to note, I think that's a testament both to good work from our local educational agencies across the state, as well as OPSC staff, if I may, in making sure that school districts and local educational agencies understand the program requirements, which expenditures are eligible, which are ineligible, and our audit staff as well in assisting the CPAs that conduct these audits to ensure that they have the information necessary for oversight in the program. The other thing I would just mention briefly regarding our reports, discussion, and information items is that we do have, for the first time in this agenda, an updated workload list as well as applications received beyond bond authority list, reflecting the availability of new bond authority under Proposition 2. As discussed in last month's meeting, we do have a much smaller, but an applications received beyond bond authority list for the modernization program only at this point in time. I'm happy to address any questions the board may have on those or other items included in the reports, discussion, and information items section of the agenda.
Thank you so much. Comments or questions from board members? Okay. Seeing none, comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, okay.
Madam Chair,
Oh,
before
yes,
we
ma'am.
go into that, can we go, well, I guess it's not, doesn't matter. Senator Perez already left. I was going to ask her how she votes on the minutes. Okay.
Oh, okay. She abstains. She's absent. Okay. All right. So that's not an action item, so we don't need any action on that. We will go ahead now. We are going to be moving into meet and close session pursuant to Government Code Section 11126E1. If members will please follow Ms. Jones to the conference room for our closed session. And are we having remote, yes, Assemblymember Marisucci remotely?
I think I have to leave.
Okay.
That is okay quorum-wise?
Yeah, I think we're okay on quorum still, correct? Yes,
Okay.
yes. Thank you for checking, Assemblymember. Appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you.
And then upon the conclusion of closed session, we will report out from session if necessary. Thank you, Assemblymember. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you very much.
We're good? Okay. All right, excellent, thank you. We're going to go ahead and come back into open session pursuant to Government Code Section 11126E1 and E2B(i). The State Allocation Board met in closed session to confer with and receive advice from legal counsel. The closed session has concluded and the board provided direction to the executive officer regarding all potential litigation. Okay. That's it, right? All right. Well, with that, we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 6:42. Thank you all.